I knew we were on a bad path, but I never thought ever in my lifetime that we would have neighbors calling on neighbors, that we would be locked in our homes. This is prison. Right?
Yeah.
But except it's better because they don't have to pay for the meals. They don't have to pay for the rent or the heat, right? So they've successfully locked us in our homes without any expense or inconvenience even to them.
Absolutely. And again, making people dependent on government.
Yeah.
Crush their businesses and financially to make them dependent on the government. Big time, you're absolutely right. So they engage in many different forms of how to polarize society. So this is a big part. What I didn't mention in my article, that besides science, they use also media, and this is big part of that. Media, they played a big role in communist Czechoslovakia. We heard from any radio, TV, books, whatever, the same. It was the same propaganda. And the purpose is, again, to create a motion of that, because everybody is speaking the same, that must be true.
Well, even Chrystia Freeland had said, repeat a lie enough times and people believe it to be true.
Exactly, Goebbels' concept. So, communism media, they played a really big role, and at the time we didn't have social media. So what I see now, actually, I have to say that even I grew up in communist regime and I could see censorship. What is happening now, I didn't see before. Like, this is absolutely disgusting. So even social media are now censoring everything. We went so far that if you wanted to know what is true, just post that on social media, and if they will block that, that means this is true. That's how we are. And I wanted to touch something very important. What media also they were doing. They concentrate on, if they found anybody who was brave enough to be opponent, they concentrate on assassination of character of this person. So I remember, for example, people who escaped from communism. Some people, they probably know names like Navratilova or Ivan Lendl, they escaped. They've been in every media described as traitors, public enemies, and just paint black. So
the truth becomes enemy number one in a communist society, right?
Exactly. So pay attention to media, and especially mainstream media, which are highly compromised, and they are not journalists anymore. They are activists, and I would say they are concentrated on propaganda.
So CBC, who receives $1 billion, and has what's the viewership? 4% of Canadians.
4%, yes.
You mean they're not journalists? I agree. I think they're called state propaganda.
They are absolutely state propaganda. Yeah, they're just reminding me what I call the Russians. They had Komsomolnaya Pravda, and Pravda means true, And there was anything but true. So it's the same with CBC, and CBC is not only one. Yeah, but it's probably the biggest one. So pay attention. Who is, literally chased by mainstream media? Which person they hate the most? That means they wanted to silence.
That's Donald Trump.
That means exactly they wanted to silence that person. They wanted to scare any supporters, and there is reason behind that, and not small one, because maybe that person is keeping you away, literally, from totalitarian enslavement.
Well, it was interesting because Chinese and Russia and communism, they use a lot of very nice slogans and words. Of course. And like even some of the campaigns, I know in China, the 100 flowers, it sounds so beautiful. And so tell us a little, because you talk in here very, they use these beautiful words, and then but it is what the opposite of what they say is actually the opposite is the truth, right? So, but it's, you wanted to bring up a reference to abusive relationships, for example. Nobody comes out and says, "Yeah, marry me so I can beat you, abuse you, and then take it." It never starts that way. It never happens that way.
So how it's starting? You see, that this is, lots of people, they don't realize that they are under indoctrination and they are slowly brainwashed. So thank you for this question. This is quite important. And when I show them that this actually has some, correlation with abusive relationship, they can relate. So how abusive relationship is working? So the first stage, always, abuser is nice. It's nice to future victim, okay? So, exactly, they don't scream, they don't use physical violence, nothing like that. Once there is emotional bond created, they can move to another stage. What they are also doing during first stage, they are trying to tell to victim that he or she is victimized by their friends and family. Why? Because they wanted to isolate them from friends and family. Why they wanted to isolate them from friends and family? So they don't have the different perspective, only their perspective. And this is what our media are doing. They don't want you to know something else. Only one perspective. So isolate you from truth. That is very important. Now, how to recognize that this person is a really nice person, and I'm saying niceness doesn't mean goodness, okay? That's two different things. And many times when somebody is nice, I'm asking what is behind that, and if it's their manipulation or something else. But how to recognize that? So the moment when you started to question their activities and attention, watch how they react. Are they listening? Do they want to speak? Do they want to debate? Or they started to call you names? They started to do some emotional abuse or even physical abuse. So if they don't listen, if they shut you down, they even physically restrain you, then you are in an abusive relationship. What is goal of abusive relationship? Eventually isolate you and stop any income coming your way. So that means you will lose your financial freedom. Once you are losing financial freedom, you are under their control completely.
Of course. I mean, how do you pay your bills? How do you feed your children? People, this is the deception and the manipulation that really tends to anger me, is that even thinking about even like vaccinations right now, in Ontario, for example, they're talking about cards in order to travel, in order to do this. They can deny you services. They won't force you to take a vaccine, but will just deny you certain services, certain freedoms that you're totally accustomed to. And I'm sitting there going, how, this is the problem, it's the boil the frog.
Yeah.
Just wear a mask. It's such a minor thing.
Yeah.
It's not a minor thing.
It's a big thing.
It's a big thing.
Absolutely.
And I don't begrudge anybody. If they feel safer and they want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But let's be honest about what's happening. And so you talk in here about the deception.
Yeah, and communism can be characterized by one word: deception. They will never ever disclose until they will feel comfortable, and I will come to that, at what point they will disclose. But until that, they will not disclose their true intentions. They will come with different slogans, different names. For example, we know that the word communism was discredited. So now they use different words. They even use word Democrats. Like Democrats.
Or democratic socialism.
It's oxymoron. There is no democracy in socialism. And socialism is first stage to communism. And lots of people, they don't realize that. It's just like you said, this is this frog effect. We know that if you will put frog in boiled water frog will jump out. But if you will put frog in cold water and start to warm up slowly,
just a degree at a time.
Exactly, drop by drop. So they basically, with COVID-19, they started to condition people that it's selfish to ask for freedom. That's where we are. That it's selfish. So this is their deception. They won't call themselves communists. They will call themselves liberals, Democrats, Greens, whatever. To me, what we have now in federal government, some people they are saying the liberals, they have minorities. They said maybe, but socialists, they have a majority. And it's just different shade of red. That's all. They are all socialists, and their ultimate goal, we touched that already, is Great Reset, which is communism. That's what it is. So,
and they're not even hiding it. Like they are that bold and that brazen right now, and people are. Especially in Canada, the US a little bit different, but in Canada, people are just complying because it's this guilt, this shame that they're being made feel, well, how could you, it's not about you, it's about putting me at risk, and how selfish of you to do that. I talked about Mayor Nenshi before, and the people who are protesting in front of City Hall on Saturdays. And they're not down there because it's about masks. They're not down there because it's about vaccines. They're down there because they, like you, see their liberties being stripped away and the tactics that are being deployed on people. This is a strategic, like you said, psychological warfare. And people in Canada, we're asleep at the wheel, and we're allowing this to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you very right that, as I said, at one point they will disclose their cards. Now, I think they achieve critical mass of indoctrinated people, and that's why all of a sudden we can hear about Great Reset. It would be impossible 1 year ago. But today they move really, really fast.
1 year ago it was a conspiracy theory.
Exactly. Now
everybody, of course, we've known about that forever.
And that's another word which our communists they use. If anybody was questioning, was crazy enough, because in 1780s, if you question communism, you were going to jail, or even you could be executed. Like, this is big time. So if somebody was crazy enough to become opponent, and question that and represent that capitalism is something else, not what you are teaching us. They were talking about, that, this is just conspiracy and what else. Conspiracy is big word. How to, again, discredit anybody who is questioning things.
Well, Mayor Nenshi actually said that the people attending these rallies are idiots. He called them idiots. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, there are people with PhDs, like, for example, Dr. Dennis Modry.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis wrote this wonderful, I think it was 3 pages, I guess. And he referenced the science, the material. You got Dr. Corey in the US who's addressed the Senate. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of these very highly informed, highly, I would say, decorated individuals and groups of individuals who have spoken out against this so-called data science that nobody has on the left. Nobody's shown anybody any data to prove or even justify the measures that they've taken. And yet we're the idiots. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I think, Mayor Nenshi, Jason Kenney, Trudeau, all of them, these are the useful idiots that are being used. Why would somebody turn their back on their own people?
Well, I would say that some of them, they gave in, under political pressure. That is my assumption from our current premier, Jason Kenney. But some of them, they are actively participating. And Calgary Mayor Nenshi is, in my eyes, is communist, like, not everybody else. And the same I see in Edmonton, unfortunately, So those two people, this is when we talk about abusive relationship, look how they react. Do they want to have a debate?
Oh, no.
Calling names and using force. So you already know that, yes, your freedom is stripped away. They don't want you to speak. They don't want you to question. Now it's time for them. You have to be quiet. You have to do what we will say. And, of course, they still can do this wrap-up, which exactly our communists, they were saying. If anybody questions something, we are just trying to protect you. Oh, all the time. Communists in Czechoslovakia, all the time they were trying to protect us against those bourgeois capitalists, because if they will come, they will exploit us. So fear and fear-mongering, it's big, big time. I'm here to protect you. Just trust me, give me your freedom, and you will see.
Yeah, and we definitely know the only security is freedom. And I laugh because I even watch and I read the newspapers today, and even last week here locally, you got people talking about enforcement and how the government is not doing enough to enforce these radicals that are out there standing up, defending their freedom. And I sit here and I go, oh my goodness, people are literally that brainwashed already. Yeah. So you talked about 3 stages, and I want to talk about the quote here from Nikita Khrushchev. He says, you, North Americans, are so gullible. And I don't think we're gullible. Well, we are kind of gullible, but it comes because we're naive. We've never experienced anything like this. How many times when you talk to people about communism and people go, Nadine, this is Canada. What are you talking about? This is Canada. This is the United States, the land of the free. Don't be so ridiculous. You're being paranoid. All of these things, because people honestly, in their naivety, and I was naive too, believe me, I never thought we'd be having this conversation. Yeah. Believe that it can't happen here, but it has been happening, and it is happening right in front of our faces, and people, I think, are just almost a little shell-shocked, don't know how to respond right now or how to think. So he says, you North Americans are so gullible. You won't accept communism outright, but we will keep feeding you small doses of socialism. See, again, they're not saying we're not going to feed you small doses of communism. We're going to feed you small doses of socialism until you finally wake up and find that you already have communism. Is that not where we're at today? Yeah. We've been for decades now indoctrinating our children, environmental movement, all these little pieces of socialism, and they've infiltrated every aspect of our lives. Now we're defending socialism. We've and all in Canada in particular, I find all but have accepted communism already. But he says you won't have to fight. You'll so weaken your economy until you fall like overripe fruit into our hands.
Yeah. And he also said, we will take over of North America. We don't need to fire one shot, literally. And that's where we are, So this is, again, another example of deception, which we talk about. And they use the word socialism, of course. And they mix that with social services. So people, they don't understand that how economy is working. Okay, so they promise stuff for free, right? Free healthcare, free education, free here, free too. And I'm sorry, I don't want it to be sarcastic, but sometimes I feel like when you have like free, come on, then you will see what I will do with you.
Well, there's always a price tag. This is what people need to realize, is nothing is free. So even this great reset, let's talk about that for a moment, because, one of the conversations that's being had right now is this debt relief that the government will eventually propose to people. And this is the you will own nothing and be happy. So we will relieve all of your debts, but you have to sign right here saying that you will own nothing and you will do as you're told, and the social credit that they have in China and the control then that they have over you is that if you don't comply, well, again, we'll take things away. We'll take away the privilege. We'll take away the few little freedoms that you may have. So that's not freedom. That this is full-on coercion.
Yeah, this is full-time communism.
This is enslavement, except for they no longer. Again, we've all become slaves, and without really knowing it, and to their benefit. It's wonderful because, again, like we're all prisoners in a home. Right now, Canada is a big prison, and there's no cost to them. They don't have to pay for the rent. They don't have to pay for the heat. They don't have to pay for the meals. We're doing that ourselves still.
Yeah. And all what they have to do is spin propaganda that this is for your own good.
Yes.
Yeah. We are just trying, again, protect you. That's absolutely all.
And yet anybody under the age of 60 in particular, the chances of dying from COVID is not even a %.
Well, lots of people, they don't do their own research. They don't check, data, real data. Okay, if you have pandemic, well, it was Spanish flu. The rate was, if I'm not mistaken, between 60 to 70%. I know that people who got Spanish flu, they died within 2-3 days or something like that. Well, we are very, very far from that. Not mention when I'm doing also some research on my own, they are finding slowly that all those machines or devices which they are using for testing, they are not reliable.
The PCR test.
Exactly. So that means that even if somebody is tested as a COVID positive, doesn't mean that he or she is COVID positive. Then how many people in age over 70, they died, but they had not additional conditions.
Yeah, it's dying from COVID by dying with COVID. This is the thing that the media is so manipulative. Yeah. And I did a video on this a little while back because it's not that they're telling full-on lies. There's always little pieces of truth in what they say, but they spin the story, the narrative, to fit their needs. Like the PCR test, for example, being set too sensitive. So it's detecting pieces of RNA that are saying coronavirus, but it's not COVID. And this is everybody reports on cases. We're not reporting on the number of deaths.
There's a reason behind that.
Because they don't exist. The average age for COVID is 82 years old, most of which have comorbidity, so pre-existing conditions. So they're dying with COVID, but they're not dying from COVID. Like the lady, and please forgive me, I mean, I'm sympathetic of anybody who loses a family member at any age. But when you're 100 years old, sorry, but we're going to die of something. Seems to be the thing. They're reporting on the cases and bolstering the numbers of cases. And it's so obvious to be propaganda. Yeah. And it is for the purpose of fear-mongering because people are easy to control when there's fear.
And people are absolutely scared. They've been very successful in this case, I'm also, completely surprised. And again, when I'm trying to put anything on social media, it's blocked. It's blocked constantly. So I just know that they are blocking through and they're becoming desperate. Because lots of people, they are starting to, I feel sometimes that the awareness is going up. Consciousness is going up. People are asking, okay, well, we started with COVID at the beginning. We've been told that this will take the most 2 months.
Well, 2 weeks has now turned into 11 months.
Yes.
And, you can't go into a little restaurant or a little store where there's maybe 3 or 4 people, but yet you can go into Costco where there's 300 people.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Exactly. So, but you see that this awareness is going up, and what I see between people, because they start to feel that they are spoon-fed with propaganda, with mainstream media. They are becoming their own investigators. They're trying to find truth. And I see alternative social media coming, and more information. I'm very thankful to doctors, scientists, lawyers who are speaking up.
So we have a group of lawyers now in Calgary who've just come together and they're doing an amazing little campaign to help bring businesses information about their rights.
That's great.
And they're there to support them. So that's coming. And we dare. The problem with doctors, unfortunately, like anything, anytime you're registered or you're licensed, the government or a medical body or a financial body, whichever it may be, they now control you because I can take your license away.
Yeah.
You know, your years of education and your career, your livelihood, they can take it away just by a threat of, if you disagree with us, they're silencing them intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, this is, again, part of fear-mongering and now also losing financial freedom. You know, if I wanted to survive, I need a job. You know, if I wanted to have a job, probably I have to be quiet, you know. So there is lots of things happening. And kudos to those who stood up and, you know, they decide, okay, enough is enough. I'm compromising now even my profession. And the same way many scientists, they felt when it was coming to climate change, you know, was literally discretion to their profession. Now they are doing that to doctors. So I'm very happy to hear about those lawyers because, you know, that when I finished this article, at the last sentence, I said we are in stage number 2, and we will still talk about stage number 2 and how indoctrination in schools is playing a role. But now we are in stage number 3. We are in last stage before we will lose freedom if this awareness will not really take off and big time.
So let's back up to demoralization, stage number 2, because I know right now so many people are losing hope, and they're depressed. Suicide rates have skyrocketed. You know, drinking, drug use has gone up. I mean, these are all the side effects of these policies, not COVID, but the policies that government have put into place that nobody wants to discuss. But I think this is part of the plan. It's the demoralization.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, communists, they always, when they play the psychological war, they always paint themselves as a moral and other side as an immoral. But what they are doing actually, they concentrate on, you know, during polarization, they concentrate on destabilize people. So how they do that? First, they have to infiltrate schools. Okay.
This is your quote from Lenin: "Give me your child for 8 years, and she will be a communist forever."
Absolutely, they know very well that, specifically teenagers, you know, when you are in that age, you more have a tendency to think with heart, I would say. So this altruism is more coming into it. And you are more sensitive into injustice. You wanted to build something new and something better. So it's, and because young people, they are still lacking a life experience, it's much easier to indoctrinate them. So I remember I was indoctrinated in our school and up to, I would say, university, I believed in communism. I was absolutely sure that I live in the best system, and especially when 100%.
Because 100% of scientists said
they
so.
agree with that. Like, how I'm lucky, and those poor capitalists and bourgeois, what they are doing to those people, I'm so lucky. Yes, that was me when I was a teenager. 16, 17, 18, 19, literally. My eyes, they started to be open a little bit only in university, and then a few things happened during university, and I was shocked when I realized what is happening. But anyway, coming back to the point, they concentrate on small children, they use children, you know, and we could see, for example, what was happening with Greta. That was typical using, you know, child. Hitler was doing that. Stalin was doing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely so. So you have here innocent child, and you are stealing childhood from this child. So again, to trigger guilt, emotions, and this victimhood and spinning narrative like that. So teachers, they play a big role. And I can tell you one thing. We had teachers who probably they disagreed with that, but they didn't want to lose job. And they've been good teachers, So they silently let it go, They didn't engage too much, or they haven't been proactive in propaganda, but they've been there. But then I remember teachers who've been very, very active. And they've been this tool for oppression and indoctrination in schools. So I was a teenager in the 80s. So I believe that teenagers in 50s and 60s, they believe that they are building better system. We're
not hearing that today. Build back better.
Yeah, but in 80s we actually could see result of that. So that is different. My point is, you probably heard that all those far left, they wanted to even push age for voting to 16.
Yes.
There is reason for that, because their database.
They're the Greta Thunbergs going, we have to save the planet.
Exactly. Or whatever. It's easier. They engage them big time. They engage young people in Black Lives Matter, which is Marxist movement. So, and it says absolutely nothing to do with black people. It's just, again, to turn one group against another one. And I can see that they resonate with young people. Lots of brainwashing. So, coming back to the point, once you achieve this critical mass, and you indoctrinate enough young people, those people, they will vote one day. And then eventually, they will put you in power. Now, what I have to say that the extreme left is working on this indoctrination for decades. We now only see the result. They infiltrated schools, academia.
Well, I think it goes back even a little bit further, because I think they were the ones it's the teachers today that were indoctrinated then, but they're teaching the youth today. So I think this goes back even further than people realize.
Yeah.
Like I think like being 48, I think my generation was kind of the last that didn't get this full-on socialist indoctrination. I think we were taught to think a little bit more critically. We were taught to question. And I think just after that, I think is when we started to see the shift. But those people who were taught in that system, they're the ones now teaching the children. So I think there's this progressive scale, right, of indoctrination that's happened. And because when I went into one of the schools, I remember this, one of the teachers, when I asked, I said, can you show me where the climate emergency is? It was a beautiful sunny day, blue skies. I said, where's the pollution? And pollution's not even a climate issue. That's an environmental issue, which I agree with. We could do a much better job. But I said, where's the climate emergency? An emergency it's a crisis. It needs addressing immediately, or else there's severe consequences. And he said, oh, it's up in the jet stream. And I went, it's in the jet stream. And I shook my head. And I mean, I was being respectful. I didn't want to go in, but I just wanted to open people's eyes to, is there a crisis? And now I think what's going on today is definitely a crisis. But it's not a pandemic. It's not COVID that's the crisis. It's this infiltration of this communist and how open and brazen they are. Like let's get into stage 3, because I think we are in the stage now of they have attained critical mass.
Yeah.
They have this indoctrination. They are demoralizing people.
Big time.
And people are defending these tactics, these measures, which for me I find extremely disturbing. And so now we're into this revolution. Now, people don't think that when we talk about revolution, we're talking about blood in the streets revolution. I think there's stages which happen. I mean, India went through a revolution and was peaceful. I'm not necessarily so hopeful that this is going to end quite so peacefully. We're already seeing Black Lives Matters, and the rioting in the streets, and the now people fighting back, and we are seeing death and destruction of property. In the hundreds of millions of dollars. Communism is just so destructive.
And that is their key word. They love destruction. Absolutely. Well, I would say in the 1920s, Lenin basically, a father of communism, right? He came with something like a word, international communism. That is globalism right now, okay? All these globalists, which they are pushing, Agenda 21, Great Reset, this is basically global communism. And yes, this is where we are now. They brainwash enough people. They got in governments, and people, they don't realize that, just like you said, revolution doesn't mean exactly that they are shooting each other, but destruction already started. All those statues which they knocked down was also part of demoralization and revolution. They are already engaging in some form of violence. So you can achieve this last stage revolution through election, which happened, then through some form of distractions, which is happening, and then through violence, which is also happening. So lots of people, they are scared, let's say, of violence, and they were debating, well, are we fighting back? Then we have civil war, or we are not fighting back, but then we are losing completely freedom. That's where we are now. Absolutely. And I'm very, very sure that the extreme left is willing to go to civil war. And people, patriots, they have to be ready to fight back, all of us. Because if they will prevail, there is nothing left. We are at the last stage. And we already mentioned that they are now even opening their cards. They are speaking more freely about what is their plan, this redistribution of wealth, complete control of everything. Just you will be debt free, but you will be also anything free. So you won't have any freedom. You will speak this and this way. There are lots of consequences. What will happen after that? As I said, what I see, that awareness is going really, really up. This is happening not only in Canada, and we will have very interesting coming weeks, I would say.